Hello and welcome back, dear students, once again to your channel. In today's video, we shall be discussing a very poignant, moving, and emotional short story from your treasure chest. Yes, this video is for my present class 9 students, and it goes without saying, if you are watching my channel and my videos are helping you to understand these chapters better, please do not forget to give me a like and also to subscribe to my channel. It shall keep me motivated. So, without any further ado, let's get started. This is the second story from your ICSE syllabus, and it's called Oliver Asks for More by Charles Dickens. Now, Oliver Asks for More is actually an excerpt, a small part from the novel called Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Let's see what it has to say. I'm on page 83 of your treasure chest. Charles Dickens, born in 1812 and passed away in 1870, was an English writer and social critic. He was a social commentator who would comment on the problems of society. He is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. Now, what is this Victorian era? Now, history of English literature tells us that there were different periods when these works were written. Charles Dickens belonged to the Victorian era when Queen Victoria was the ruling queen of England, 1850s around. Okay, Oliver asks for more. The orphan Oliver and his companions were ill treated, were mistreated, were badly treated, and starved in the workhouse. That is, go, they had to remain without food. One day, a tall boy announced that he would eat the boy who slept next to him unless he was given extra gruel. Gruel is your soup, and by soup, please do not understand the soup which your mother gives serves you when you are unwell. Okay, it's absolutely nothing like that. Gruel here is the soup, the kind of water basically with you know one or two dots of corns, maybe, sometime barley mixed with it. That is what they would be served for food. You can understand how pathetic condition they were living in. A council was held and it was decided that Oliver should ask the master for more. So the boys who were living in that workhouse, they decided that until and unless they asked for more food, it would be very difficult for them to survive. So a meeting was held and it was decided that Oliver would go and ask the person serving the master food, the person serving food or this gruel, the master, that he needs some more food. Okay. Oliver Twist was then bound into apprenticeship, that is your training, with an undertaker. Oliver Twist exposes the cruel treatment of many orphans in London. This is basically the theme of your Oliver Twist, the novel. Okay? Many orphans in London in the mid 19th century industrial age England. Industrial age, from your lessons of history, factories were being set up, okay, in London. That is why what happened was society was divided between the haves and the have nots, people who had a lot of money in their hand and people probably who had nothing in their hand, because factories were coming up, so the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. This excerpt, this small piece, reflects Dickens's own experiences and difficult childhood. So this is autobiographical in nature. Despite the evident pathos, Dickens manages to infuse the central character with gentility and empathy. Empathy is compassion. All right, let's see what the story has to say. Among other buildings in a town in England, there was a house for poor people who had no money and nowhere to live. This was called the workhouse. Oliver Twist was born in a workhouse, so from the very outset, it is made clear that Oliver Twist belonged to absolutely the lowest of the lowest strata of society. Someone who had no money and nowhere to live. That is why he was born in the workhouse itself. His mother, a young woman, lay ill in bed. A doctor and an old woman stood by her side. She lifted her head from the pillow. Let me see the child and die, she said. So the mother was dying, and her last wish was that she should see the child she's given birth, and then only would she die. Oh, you mustn't talk about dying yet, said the doctor. No, dear, said the old woman. You're too young to die. The young woman shook her head and held out her hand towards the child. So, no matter how much was told to her, do not talk of dying, you're still young. She understood that her end is near and she wanted to see the child. That was her last wish. The doctor put the child in her arms. She pressed her cold white lips to its face and then fell back. So, immediately after kissing the child, she falls dead. See the plight of the child. Just as he is born, his mother expires. Little does he know what the affection of mother means. Such a poor fellow. She's dead, said the doctor. Yes, poor dear, said the old woman as she took the child away from its dead mother. Poor dear. Poor dear. The mother also is extremely poor because she could not nurture or nourish her own child. And the child, the newborn, is also destitute because the child does not get the mother's tenderly love. She was a good looking girl, said the doctor as she put on his hat and gloves. Where did she come from? She was brought here last night, said the old woman. She was lying in the street. She had walked a long way and her shoes had holes in them. Nobody knows where she came from or where she was going. Something to take note of. Nobody knows about the family history of Oliver Twist. The doctor raised the dead woman's left hand. The usual story, he said. I see that she has no ring on her finger. She wasn't married. God, good night. So Oliver Twist was born to her mother outside marriage. All right. He went home. Now, why is it said the usual story? Because England, the Victorian England, at this point of time, were going through a lot of social changes. Okay. Uh, your lessons in history will give you elaborate details about it, but more than that, I could only tell you here that the authority of the church was being questioned at this point of time. Morality was being questioned. The idea of morality, what is moral, what is immoral, and what is immoral, were being questioned. The church, which was the holding chair of responsibility for everything and anything, was questioned. So there were a lot of confusions and dichotomy in the minds of the Victorians. So a lot of changes were taking place. So at this point of time, it became very common for young people to get into relationship, and child would be born out of it. Okay, so that is why the doctor terms it as the usual story. He went home to his dinner. The old woman sat down on a chair in front of the fire and began to dress the baby. She dressed him in the very old clothes used for babies who were born in the workhouse, so nothing was available newly. Things were recycled constantly. The child was an orphan. Orphan is a person who does not have a father and a mother, born into a world which had no love or pity for him. Because Victorian society at this point of time, you will see that it was a highly industrialized society, it was commercialized society. So emotions did not have any value. All right. No one was able to discover who the baby's father was or what was his mother's name. Mr. Bumble, an important officer in the town, invented a name for the baby. He chose the name Oliver Twist. We name the babies here in order from A to Z. So, alphabetically, the children are named. He explained when people asked, I named the last one Swabble, this one is Twist, the next one will be Unwin. So, there was no logic behind it, but they were, alphabetically named. At the age of 9, Oliver was a pale, thin child, a 9-year-old boy, extremely pale and thin. Why? Because he does not get proper food, proper nourishment, proper love. He and other workhouse boys never had enough warm clothes or food, such is the tragedy. They were given only 3 meals of thin soup every day. I told you it's watery substance, it's not the food which your mother serves you. Okay, it's basically barley mixed with water, or sometimes one or two corns dropped in a tumbler of water. On Sunday they had a small piece of bread, so along with this thing soup, on Sundays they would be given a small piece of bread. They were fed in a big hall. A large pot stood at one end of the room, and the soup was served by the master. Each boy had one small bowl of soup and no more. The bowls never needed washing, so such was the condition of society. It was extremely squalid and dirty. Standard of living were extremely low. People did not even wash their utensils. The bowls were never the bowls never needed washing because the boys cleaned them with their spoons until they shone. So the boys would be so hungry that they would keep on cleaning it with the soup till the last dreg possible. One day, Oliver and his friends decided that one boy would walk up to the master after supper, that is dinner, and ask for more soup. Oliver was chosen because Oliver seemed to be far more, bold than the others. In the evening, the boys sat down at the tables, the master stood by the pot, and the soup was served. It disappeared quickly because the children were extremely hungry. The boys whispered and made signs to Oliver. He stood up from the table and went to the master with his bowl and spoon in his hand. Please, sir, he said, I want some more. The master was a fat, healthy man, but he went very pale, pale in anger. He looked with surprise at the small boy because no one has till date dared to ask for more food. And look at Oliver, who's coming up, walking up straight and without any apprehension, with a lot of conviction, is saying that he wants more. What? Said the master at last in a quiet voice. Please, sir, repeated Oliver, I want some more. So this was the ultimatum. First time Oliver said, okay, but now when he's being made to ask, what did you say? He's repeating himself. Such is his conviction, such is his confidence. The master hit Oliver with his spoon and then seized him and cried for help. How dare you ask for more food? Who gave you the authority to question and ask? That was the attitude. And Oliver was hit with the spoon, the serving spoon. Mr. Mumble rushed into the room and the master told him what Oliver had said. He asked for more. So that was a crime that he's asking for more food because you're poor. You have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to live. And for free, you're getting food and accommodation here. And then also, you have so much of guts to ask for more. That was the idea. Mr. Bumble cried, I cannot believe it. One day they will hang the boy. He took Oliver away and shut him in a dark room. The next morning, a notice appeared on the workhouse gate. £5 were offered to anybody who would take Oliver Twist. So, anybody willing to take Oliver Twist to his house would be paid £5 as good riddance. That please take. So, Oliver was considered as a nuisance, and anybody who would help take the nuisance away would be offered a money. Otherwise, nobody would take Oliver away, no? Because he needed to be provided for food, accommodation, bare minimum clothes. Who would take? And that to someone who is so daring to ask for more food. Who would take? So, the allurement of this money was also given. Oliver was a prisoner in that cold, dark room for a whole week. Every morning he was taken outside to wash, and Mr. Bumble beat him with a stick. So every day he was caned for asking one simple, rightful question. Such was the condition of society. Then he was taken into a large hall where the boys had their soup. Mr. Bumble beat him in front of everybody. So second round of beating continued for quite some days. Because why was it done in front of the boys? Because no boy, because Oliver would be made an example before the other boys, and no boy would dare to do that again. When night came, he tried to sleep, but he was cold, lonely, and frightened. He cried all day. So Oliver was alone completely, without a mother, without a father, without any parents, without any well wisher. He lay asleep in his prison all alone in that cold weather. One day, outside the high workhouse gate, Mr. Bumble met Mr. Sowerberry. Mr. Sowerberry was a tall, thin man who wore black clothes and made coffins. Many of his coffins for the poor people were made who died in the workhouse. I have prepared the coffins for the two women who died last night, he said to Mr. Bumble. Good, said Mr. Bumble. You will be rich one day because so many people are dying. Mr. Sowerberry, do you know anybody who wants a boy and £5? He raised his stick and pointed to the notice on the gate. So he's, in other words, asking Mr. Sowerberry, would you like to take him, or do you know of anyone who would like to take Oliver away with him? After this, lot of things happens. He runs away, he meets Nancy, and so on and so forth. He becomes a pickpocket. A lot of adventures take place. So, if you're interested, I would definitely suggest you to read the original novel. You would be simply moved by the plight of the young boy. Okay, so that's the story for you. The author has poignantly shown how ugly society was without compassion, without empathy, without humility, and without humanliness. Okay, so do not, we'll have to stop here, I guess, till our next video. If you find this video helpful and interesting, please do not forget to give me a like and also subscribe to this channel. All right, see you in the next video. Take very good care of your health. Till then, goodbye.